Let's make sure stuff.
Let's see. We have.
Yeah, Twitch is fast. Twitch is always like the first one to pop up.
It's not.
Facebook or YouTube's always the slowest.
Oh, there it goes. I see us. I see myself looking.
YouTube's always the slowest.
You ready? Let's go into the.
Ooh. All kinds of like Inception. Oh, we gotta wait for you to catch up.
There
There it
we go.
is.
Oh yeah.
Choo, 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 choo. Nice. I like it. All right. Now I need to put our little blurb up here. It says, welcome to the live
Let's
show.
log into Twitch on my browser so that I can do a quick tweet out. So glad that it got rid of that .justin.tv. That was weird.
Yeah.
Back in the good old days.
I remember that. Welcome to the live show.
Twitter.
Due to the format, we are.
Joy of better living. Join us. Or don't.
Sound like the neutrals in Futurama. Join us or don't.
Right.
Oh, excuse me. Pin. And then that. And then we put it right here.
Welcome to the live show. Due to the format, we are unable to interact with chat in real time, but we welcome questions and answers. Perfect.
Harky darky. Did you get a chance to look over the notes?
I did take a look, yes. There's certain topics on there that you will definitely have to take the lead on.
Okay. I can do that. I had one other thing here.
For example, I've never actually fixed a dripping faucet.
Yeah, I've actually never fixed one either, but I've replaced them before, so.
There you go. And I have actually never replaced an outlet.
Oh, I've done lots of those.
But
I hate it when they get worn out and the plug doesn't stay in. So.
yeah. I just read the intro. Next week we're doing Birds Aren't Real. I'm super excited for that one.
That's right. That's what we're doing. I couldn't remember.
Mindfulness quote. Oh. It's a good Tim Allen quote. Home improvement quote. Let's see. forgot how great Home Improvement was.
It was a good show.
There's a meme that cracks me up. It's got a picture of the actor that plays Al. It says, "Beards. Takes a real man to rock one in 100+ degree weather."
Isn't that the truth? It finally started cooling down here. Finally.
Right.
It's nice. The high today was 73. The low this morning was 48. My tomatoes were like, oh, maybe we should start ripening.
Look at that.
They've just been sitting there green for a long time.
I got busy and stopped watering, so my tomatoes ripened and then fell off and then brought nutrients to the soil.
Oh, there you go.
So,
Yeah, I turned off the drip on the bed that has my tomatoes. Hopefully that and the cold weather will shock them into ripening. So
that's the hope, right? Usually once they don't get water anymore, they go, oh, we need to ripen so something will eat us that we can continue to live.
Yep, gotta drop our fruit.
So, yeah. One of my neighbors has an apple tree. This year was great for apples here in Colorado. She had so many apples that it actually broke one of the branches, like it was so heavy.
Oh, man.
But the squirrels have been... It's so funny. Every morning I wake up, I go out there. There's 5 or 6 squirrels up in her apple tree just having a feast. And like 5 or 6 cats underneath the apple tree just waiting for a squirrel to fall.
That's awesome. I love it.
Some of the crows and ravens have taken to the cottonwood trees in my backyard to watch the whole thing, hoping that the cat does get a squirrel so that they can have the picking. Like, it's just the freaking circle of life out there right now, and it just cracks me up.
Nice. I like it.
So much for having a water bottle.
Must have been thirsty.
Oh, man. It's been rainy all day, and whenever it rains, I forget to drink water.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, you know, just weird like that. Well, mindfulness quote.
Yeah, I was looking, trying to find one.
You're on it?
Yeah, I have a couple. I'm just trying to find which one to grab.
Cool.
How about, let's see.
What? Nessie? Another Nessie spotting?
Oh, yeah?
Crazy. Two days ago, somebody put up webcams, and then they got a site. Crazy. Yeah, it's on the mirror though, so I don't know how viable that is.
Yeah. Yeah. It's probably one step above the Guardian. I don't know.
Probably one step below the Guardian, in all honesty.
Yeah. Fair.
Inverness Courier. Agree to your cookie policy. Well, that's exciting.
All right. Well,
That's almost more exciting than people boiling chicken in NyQuil.
That sounds tasty.
Have you seen that stupid TikTok trend?
I have not. Although I
think
imagine it
TikTok's
would
removing
taste
it.
like you said NyQuil, right? So it would probably taste like Jaeger. That licorice
The
anise.
FDA, I don't want to go too much into it, but the FDA has officially come out and said, "Don't do this. It's stupid, and you can get very sick because you're basically overdosing on the active ingredients of NyQuil."
Yeah. It's not so much the alcohol in it; it's the acetaminophen that you got to be careful with. Stuff will cook your liver or
And
kidneys, one of the two.
who needs liver? Yeah, if you just put in NyQuil chicken into a search bar. NyQuil tweets about dangers of NyQuil chicken. Challenge. FDA, stop cooking chicken NyQuil. It could lead to lung damage.
Lung damage, huh?
Yeah. I guess cooking the antihistamine in it concentrates.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not what I would have thought the big concern was, but I suppose it makes sense. All right, mindfulness moment is in.
Excellent. What do we have here? We have...
You said that like the Knights of Knee. Like you're going to send me for a shrubbery.
We are no longer the knights who say ni. We are the knights who say iki, 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 sing. I can't remember the rest of it.
Yeah, something like that.
Oh, Wilson. I like Wilson. Birds aren't real. Hey, Adam, birds aren't real.
I'm excited.
I was telling my wife about that. I'm like, oh yeah, next week's gonna be fun. We're gonna do birds aren't real. She's like, what are you talking about? Such a weirdo.
Should be a good one.
Kick out of me hanging this banner in my office, since it will not be my office for much longer.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Well, I think I'm ready, so I will click the record button.
Excellent. Testing 1, 2, 3. I see my little sound wave moving around, even though it is a little far.
Yeah, I can see it too. Is mine moving?
It is.
Okay.
I've got a lot of movement on mine from you. Mine is barely moving. It's like
Seems like that's usually what it does. So.
That's all right. I'm 6,000 Microsoft Awards points away from another $10 gift card to Amazon.
Nice.
Which will get me, what you call it?
Mike.
Yes, that's the word.
Mike. Guess what day it is?
Mikey, guess what day it is?
All right. I can go ahead and introduce this week.
I don't think so, Tim.
I love Alan.
He was my favorite.
Yeah, he's a good one. All right. Welcome to Views from the World Tree. On this week's show, we channel our inner Tim Allen and tackle the subject of tools and basic home improvement. And now, on with the show.
How long have you been practicing that?
Not as long as you would think.
That was impressive. That was incredible.
Yeah,
I gotta tell you.
that was always my favorite part of the intro back when I used to watch the show. All of us kids would try and mimic it and get the timing like exactly right.
Oh, yeah, that was incredible.
Oh, well, thank you.
a little bit of muscle memory right there, I guess.
Something, yeah. Maybe it's just the age, I don't know. But
That could be it. Well, before we go into news, did you ever watch Man of the House?
that's the new one, right? That's set in Colorado.
Yeah.
And his wife on that show is the ex-wife on Home Improvement. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Or, no, I misspoke, sorry. On Man of the House, the actress that plays his ex-wife is the actress that played his wife on Home Improvement.
Yes.
So, I thought that was pretty funny. The few episodes where she shows up and they make references back to, his old job where he used to fix things and work with tools. But yeah, funny show, good show.
I remember that. Then Jonathan Taylor Thomas played like the restaurant tycoon.
Oh,
Denver,
that's
too.
right. I forgot about that. That's right.
It had a lot of crossovers. It was kind of fun.
Yeah.
I think my favorite was that show didn't take itself too seriously.
No, it didn't.
We're not talking about that show, are we?
We are not. No. It was a good one, though.
Since I opened my mouth, I guess I'll do the news first. As far as reading, I picked up a book on Audible, part of their Prime catalog, called Homeless to Billionaire by Andre Pira. And basic premise of this book is this guy didn't believe the book The Secret, like manifesting into the universe, and set out to disprove it, and ended up quote unquote proving it. For those of you on the podcast, I just did the air quotes things because you didn't see that. So it's interesting. I still don't believe in like the true power of manifestation, but I do enjoy these type of books that make me think. So I don't know. I don't assume that you've heard of this book, considering I didn't even know about it until I needed something to fall asleep to.
I have not heard of this one, so I will admit to that.
Yeah. It's good. One thing that I really enjoyed about the book so far, and I don't always do these exercises when I read a book, especially self-help book. I usually just listen to it and move on. was setting goals, like life goals. He had a exercise in there, and I just decided, you know what, I'm gonna try it. And so I wrote down. So the first step of the goal was to write down everything that you don't want in life. So like, I don't want to be poor. I don't want to be homeless. I don't want to
Mm.
be addicted to drugs and alcohol. I don't want all of this. And then on the next page, once you run out of things that you don't want, you draw a line underneath it. Then you change them all to positive statements, like opposite of I don't want to be poor, I want to be rich. Opposite of I don't want to do drugs or be addicted to drugs and alcohol is I don't want to, or I want to live a healthy life type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, you choose the most important things and you put in attainable goals. So like, what are you going to do to be rich? Well, I'm going to save so much money over this next year and invest it in index funds or something like that. And so I actually kind of like that mental shift, like this exercise of shifting from looking at the negatives to turning it into a positive spin to turning goals off of what your wants are. I feel like that was a great exercise of focusing. So I did appreciate that.
Yeah, that is cool. That does sound like something useful came out of it.
Yeah. If anything, it at least turned my frown upside down. So.
Cool.
Yeah. And then as far as watching / playing, I'm down to the last 2 episodes of Devil in Ohio. And that has taken some really dark turns, and it's gotten a little bit creepy, suspenseful. So I can only take it in small doses. Still really good. And then as far as playing, I re-downloaded Car Mechanics Simulator, and I've been rebuilding fictional cars.
Nice. That is a fun one. One of those relaxing, just kind of pass the time.
Yeah. What I like about it is you have these puzzles that you can do where you take calls from people and they tell you something's wrong and you try to diagnose it and replace the parts and get the car working again, which is kind of more mentally taxing until you figure out exactly what the computer means by certain key phrases, and then you just kind of go. Or you can rebuild a car from the ground up, which is usually what I do, because you just go buy a car from a junkyard, tear it all apart, sell all the parts that won't work anymore, and then you just methodically put it back together.
Nice.
Yeah, so like you said, it's mind-numbing and relaxing.
Cool.
I assume you've played that one before.
I have, yeah. In fact, when was it? It might have been Sunday or Saturday. We were sitting in the living room, my wife and I said, "Hey, there's this game. It's on Game Pass," because she prefers to play on the console. So I said, "You should load it up and see how you do, and I can be your phone a friend, your lifeline if you get stuck." So I haven't played it recently, not within the last month or so, but I did watch her play it and kind of coached her through. So that was fun.
Nice. How is it on the Xbox?
It's good. The controls are actually a little bit easier because it's like when you're taking out bolts and screws and putting them back in, you don't actually have to target them.
Ooh.
So you just hold down the button. It's like if you're taking a wheel off, you just hold down the button and it zoom, 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 takes all the lug nuts off. So it's got some
joy out of it.
Yeah, it's a little bit more forgiving. But then in other aspects, it's kind of hampered a little bit by the UI just due to it being on a console. So,
gotcha.
But it looks really pretty. The TV that we have is a 4K TV, and my monitor is only 2K, It's 1440p, so it looks really pretty on the TV.
Nice. The resolution on my TV is not much better than on my computer, so
Yeah.
it probably won't look as nice on mine. And then as far as regular news, last night I could not sleep at all. I was like in the midst of like this mental breakdown. So I was up late scrolling the internet, and I saw something that the FDA advises not to cook chicken in NyQuil. I went, what the heck is this about? Went down a rabbit hole of people apparently cooking chicken in the cold syrup as a challenge or something.
Oh dear.
It was one of those moments of the stupidity of people never ceases to astound. But I will cover the highlights. Basically, FDA says boiling any type of medication changes the concentration. It can be dangerous. Alters chemical properties, also can be dangerous. And purifies substances, which can also be dangerous depending on the substance that you're purifying. So they advise not to do it. In fact, they tell you that it never should be done. NyQuil should never be boiled, and if it is boiled, you shouldn't be inhaling it. So, that being said, people who are listening, do not boil your chicken in NyQuil.
Oh, man. That's what I was going to do for dinner tomorrow. I'm going to have to come up with something else.
Yeah, I was blown away when I saw that. What?
Must be the new version of was it the Tide Pods, the last one? I don't know.
It's funny because I read an article today that said FDA came out with this warning against this TikTok challenge of cooking chicken in NyQuil. But there wasn't a challenge until the FDA said that there was. Basically saying it wasn't happening, but now it is.
A little bit of a Mandela effect.
Yeah.
It's funny how that works.
Yeah, there you go. So, that's the news from my end. What you got?
So for me, for my reading, I've got too many that I'm juggling right now, so I'm trying to go and focus on one until I finish it. So I'm back on Failure is Not an Option by Gene Kranz. This was the flight director during the Apollo missions. Still making my way through that on Audible. It's actually a lot longer than I anticipated, so cranked up the speed to 1 1/4, and that helps. But it's a really good book. It's very narrative heavy, as a lot of autobiographies tend to be. So
yeah.
And then for what I've been watching, so my wife and I are trying to cut costs a little bit, so we canceled Paramount Plus and Hulu. So I've been lacking or feeling the lack of Star Trek, because Star Trek's not streaming anywhere except for Paramount Plus now. They pulled it off of everything else. No. So I fired up Pluto TV because they have a Star Trek channel that shows reruns of Next Generation 24/7. So I was watching that for a little bit, and Pluto TV is free. It's just ad-driven if you're not familiar with it. And so I was checking out what other channels they have, and I found that they have a Jeopardy channel that just shows Jeopardy reruns. So I put that on while we were working on canning peaches and pears, which I'll get to in a little bit here. And just kind of have been on a Jeopardy kick since then. And it's kind of making me miss Alex Trebek. But
yeah.
So that made myself sad a little bit, but it's been fun to get in there and watch.
Oh, Alex.
And then the only other bit of watching news, I saw that the series Andor, the Disney Plus series, the first 3 episodes came out. It must have been today or yesterday. It was fairly recent. So this is the one that's a prequel to Rogue One. So it has Cassian, played by, I don't remember his name, I believe the Spaniard actor, and some other people. Like I said, I haven't actually watched it yet. I just saw that it was on there.
Yeah, that is one of the shows that I would resubscribe to Disney for in a heartbeat. It looks so good.
Yeah. Well, I'll check out the first few episodes and let you know if it's good or not.
There you go.
We get that one through our Verizon plan, so we haven't dropped Disney Plus yet.
Yeah, we dropped everything in an effort to save money, and then I ended up getting a part-time job which covers TV, so we resubscribed to Sling, so we have BBC and Discovery and stuff on Sling, but none of the apps anymore.
Yeah. And then so for my other news, not really any like headlines or anything, just an update on like gardening and canning. So last couple of weeks, my wife and I have been focusing on that. We are done with peaches because they're kind of, the season is past now. So we ended up with 30 quarts of peaches and like 25 to 28 quarts of pears. I'd have to go and count. And then we have a bunch of plums that we're going to make into jelly. We also have half a bushel of tomatoes in the freezer that we're going to use for salsa. And I'm hoping to get another full bushel off of my plants by the time the first frost comes. So I actually just went through earlier this evening and pruned the tomato jungle that I have. So try to get a little bit more sunlight and air blowing through the plants to try and help hasten that a little bit.
Jeez Louise.
Yeah, lots of fruit. So
you must have had a great year. I did not have near as much luck. I think I have maybe 6 tubers on my potato plant, and I got two pieces of fruit for my tomato.
We got lucky with our tomatoes, zucchini, and cucumbers. Our onions and our beets didn't do very well. My pepper plants, I've only gotten like 2 peppers off of. And then the fruit, we actually just went to an orchard over here in West Idaho. And just got peaches and pears and plums from them. So we don't have fruit trees yet. We haven't planted any. We're hoping to plant some within the next year once we decide where in the backyard we actually want to put them.
Oh, all I have to say is when I come out next summer for our in studio show, I expect a quart of peaches and a quart of pears, and I will probably eat it all and then drink the syrup.
Yeah, we've got them. Actually, when we canned them all, we calculated out so that we could open one every week, like 1 quart of peaches one week, 1 quart of pears the next, and then we ended up with like 5 extra of each. So nice. We've got plenty.
So that's awesome.
But yeah, that was it for me.
Cool. Super eventful.
Yeah.
NyQuil and canning. Well, this is kind of your brainchild topic. Do you want to give us an introduction?
Sure. So this week we're talking about, like we said in the opening, basic tools and home repairs. And so I was browsing YouTube a little while ago, and I found a channel, and I didn't subscribe, so I can't remember who it was. But it was this middle-aged guy who basically makes videos as like a surrogate father figure for people who grew up without a dad or without somebody to fulfill that role. And so it'll be things like basic car repair and things like that. And so I thought, yeah, that's kind of cool. That would be kind of a fun topic. And, as we've been doing this for a year, we're trying to stay creative in what we talk about. So I thought that would be a really cool thing to discuss, just kind of for people that didn't have somebody in their life growing up to fulfill that role, to teach them about what basic tools should you have and what things around the house should you know how to fix. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And I just realized I forgot to switch the overlay on the video, so I will do that now. And you have a delay.
Pre-show shenanigans.
Or not. You'll have to let me know when it pops up, because I think you'll like it.
I don't think so, Tim. No, that's dang clever. Oh.
I may have had some extra time on my lunch break.
I like it. Let's see. I feel like I need to turn this way a little bit so I can look like I'm discussing across the aisle to you.
There you go.
Which is really weird because it's counterintuitive since my camera's over here.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. I like this topic. I was a little bit nervous for this. For those of you that don't know, I actually am one of those people that grew up without a father. I did have father figures in my life. But as far as learning the how to do things around the house, as far as fixing things and whatnot, I did not have that opportunity until later on in life when I actually ended up working for a subcontractor and doing some construction. So this topic spoke to me on a level that I was a little excited to do it myself. So I say let's jump in.
Cool. So to start off with, there's some very basic tools that, in my opinion, everybody should own. These are things that I would say, so as I was going through making the list, I tried to make it as broad as possible. So I think these are tools that are useful whether you live in like a tiny studio apartment in Tokyo or even on a big 40-acre ranch in Montana. So it's just a list of 6 very simple things, and I probably forgot some. But so the first thing I have is a hammer, and specifically a claw hammer, because that will allow you to pull nails and things. And then a screwdriver set, so 2 or 3 Phillips screwdrivers, 2 or 3 flat screwdrivers, a tape measure, some pliers, a handsaw, and a crescent wrench or an adjustable wrench. And with these things, I think, really the majority of like simple little repairs you can handle with these things. You don't need power tools. When I had my first tools, when I first moved out of my parents' house, I just had cheap hand tools from Walmart, and it's a good way to start out.
Yeah. There's one thing that I would add to your list, and I can't remember what it's called outside of the North America, but here in America we call it duct tape.
Ah, that's a good one.
Its original purpose was to basically create a sealant so air didn't escape from ducts, hence the name. But it's a very strong tape that you can use to fix things until you can hire a professional as well.
Yeah, it's really really strong. It's got fibers woven through it that make it super stout. It's got really sticky adhesive on it. That's a good one. I'm going to add it to the list right now.
There you go. Yeah, I was looking through it, and even as I was looking through the notes, I'm like, oh, we're missing one. Oh, duct tape. Yeah, that's got to be it. So I'm glad you took that first step. As far as nice to haves, the next set of tools. So these are things that you don't necessarily have to be able to do basic repairs around your apartment, around your condo, around your house, around your ranch, around your car. But they definitely are nice. The first is a cordless drill or a cordless screwdriver, and then a level, which is kind of iffy now, because I think most iPhones actually have an app where you can use it as a level. Stud finder, socket wrench, and then a wrench set. As far as the socket wrench and socket set and wrench set, I don't use them, but I know people who do basic repairs in the garage use them a lot more.
Yeah, especially on working on cars and lawnmowers and things like that. They're really handy.
Yep. And a power drill is extremely handy. That's probably my favorite thing in the world because it saves so much muscle power.
Yes.
To have something like that.
Speaking as somebody who has actually had surgery for carpal tunnel on one hand and for cubital tunnel on both elbows, I really can't use a manual screwdriver anymore. It just doesn't work. So it's kind of a must-have for me. And that doesn't come from construction, though. That comes from 20 years of typing with bad posture.
Yeah, you're one of those people that your hobby of playing video games does not help when you are a code monkey.
It's true, yep. So as far as deciding which tool to buy, so if you go on the internet and you ask somebody what's the best wrench? What's the best hammer? Or even worse, if you say, what's the best cordless drill? And you ask 5 different people, you're going to get 5 different answers. And each of those people is going to be absolutely convinced that their answer is correct, and you will not be able to change their mind.
What?
I know, right?
You can't change people's minds on the internet?
Crazy. And so I remember when I was first living on my own, walking into a hardware store to try and get some basic tools. And it's actually pretty daunting, especially if you haven't been to hardware stores before. You walk into this place that's as big as a super Walmart, but they just sell tools. So you take the one aisle from Walmart and it explodes into this huge store. And so how do you know what to get? The advice that I've lived by that I think is pretty good actually comes from Adam Savage, who was on Mythbusters. And there's a quote that he says, whenever he's asked this question, he says, buy cheap tools until you know what you really need from that tool, and then buy the best version that you can afford. And this has actually been really great advice for me. There's been tools that I bought and used them for a little while, and then they broke, and then I'm like, okay, well, now that I've used it for a year, I know exactly what I'm looking for. And you go and actually spend the money, within reason, of course, on something that's higher quality. I like to look for things that have a lifetime warranty. And so that's what you spend your money on. There's also, though, been tools that I've bought, and I find that I don't ever really use it. Maybe it's something I use once a year, And in that case, it doesn't make sense to spend a lot of money on if it's something that you only use very occasionally. One piece of advice that I will say specifically when you're buying power tools is whichever brand and family that you decide to go with, try to stay within that same brand. The reason for that is a DeWalt or Milwaukee or Makita drill are all pretty much identical as far as function, but the batteries are not interchangeable. And actually the batteries are really expensive, like almost as much as the tool in some cases. And so what you don't want is a different brand of drill, screwdriver, saw, etc. So then you have to juggle 3 different brands of batteries and 3 different chargers, and you have to buy, a battery for each tool as opposed to just having 2 or 3 that you can rotate through. So yeah, I would recommend trying to stay in the same family. And then, like I mentioned just a minute ago, sometimes it is worth paying just a little bit extra for brands that offer like a no questions asked lifetime warranty. Especially if it's one where you can just walk into a store and exchange it, no questions asked. It's usually only a thing with hand tools, not power tools. And my go-to brand used to be Craftsman, back before they were bought out and are super cheap now. And now my go-to brand for hand tools is Husky, which is the Home Depot store brand, and specifically because they're a fairly good medium to high quality tool, and they offer that no questions asked. If you snap a wrench in half, you carry it into any Home Depot and you walk out with a brand new one. So and then I just had one other bullet point here. Have you ever seen a YouTube channel called Project Farm?
I haven't. I was reading the notes. I was super excited to hear about it. So
okay. So this is a guy who he has a farm, and he has built this whole YouTube community around doing super honest, super unbiased, scientific comparisons of different tools. He's done everything from like which brand of oil to run in your car to like the whole gamut of power tools, saw blades, anything to do with tools. He's done furnace filters, and his big thing is, so he does have a Patreon, but he's not sponsored by any brands. He refuses all sponsorships. He specifically buys every tool that he tests himself so that he can be unbiased. And he just designs these experiments that are like super fair to everything, super in-depth, and it's just really cool to watch. And then he compares multiple aspects of each tool. He takes the price into account, and then he kind of like ranks everything. He has all these graphs that he pops up during the videos. So would definitely recommend checking him out. Really good YouTube channel.
That's awesome. I'm going to add him to my to-watch list. Or maybe we'll just subscribe to him on from our YouTube channel so that we can both enjoy him.
There you go.
So I do want to add one thing, as you were talking about, buy cheap until you really know what you need. There is one time where I will say buy quality, and that is if you have to buy any sort of chainsaw or anything like that, because cheap can slip, and I just had a buddy who severed a tendon in his arm from a slipped blade. Oof. So definitely buy quality if you plan on cutting down or pruning a tree. But that's a different episode.
Or safety equipment too, I guess. Don't cheap out on the safety glasses.
Yep. So just be prepared. You do get what you pay for. As far as hand tools, yeah, buy cheap. Go to Walmart and get Craftsman, which was really sad that Sears went out of business and the Craftsman got bought out. But, you know.
Yeah.
So, you've gone out, you've bought your starter set of tools, you are living in a house. I'm gonna say a house or a condo, considering most apartments, if something breaks, you can, here in America at least, you call the landlord and they'll come over and fix it. We're gonna go over some of the things that you can do with your tools. Simple fixes, simple things to cut down on expenses, because constantly calling out and hiring people to come fix things can get really expensive. A lot of companies, especially plumbing, it's like a $75 just to get them to the house, whether they fix something or not.
Mm-hmm.
And that is expensive. So, first things first, how to fix a dripping faucet. This is one of the most common annoyances for most homeowners. And it's also, unfortunately, one of the most complicated. In the United States alone, there are 3 to 4 different types of faucets that are commonly put into houses. And generally, the problem boils down to a damaged or dirty washers, O-rings, or grommets, which are all parts of the end of the faucet. If you're interested in what any of those look like, look them up, Google them, because they are kind of hard to explain. But, so before you do any work on your faucet, turn off the water. I remember when I was in high school, I had come home from football practice, and my brother was fixing a dripping faucet, and he forgot to turn off the water, and it was just spraying in his face. He had both hands out trying to block the water, and he was just yelling, "Where do I turn this off? Turn it off!" And it was comedic, and he probably will hit me for throwing him under the bus if he ever listens to this episode. But that's important, because floods suck to clean up.
Yeah.
To find the water, usually underneath the sink that you're working at, there's valves where the water connects to the sink itself, the faucet itself. There's usually one for cold, one for hot. Righty-tighty, turn them tight. Open up the valve on the sink before you take it apart. Make sure that it's off, and to clear the line of any excess water, and then you're good to go. Most faucets are disassembled by removing the cosmetic cover over the actual valve itself. You can do this by either prying it off, or there's a small screw that you can sometimes find somewhere on the outside of the cover. Once this cover is off, there's usually a main screw that holds several parts together. Remove the screw, take apart the mechanism, and as you're taking apart, inspect everything to see if there's anything dirty or damaged. I also like to grab little plastic cups, like little Solo cups or little Dixie water cups, to put all of your screws, nuts, washers, everything in as you're taking them apart. Because the last thing you want to do is get everything ready to be put back together and you can't find what you're looking for. It's horrible.
And don't drop anything down the drain.
Yep.
I've done that before.
Perhaps in our next episode, we'll talk about how to take apart a drain so you can fish out your wedding ring or a screw that you may have dropped down there or any of that.
There you
go. So back on topic though, as you're taking these things apart, you're going to replace anything that's broken. I know in my experience, most of the time it's a washer that's kind of expanded and pushed out and then cracked. Replace those, clean the dirty ones, and then you're going to try to put the put the faucet back together as it came out with the new parts, clean parts, whatnot. In many cases, replacement parts are not readily available, and it may be easier to buy a new faucet, which will also contain all the hardware as well as written instructions on how to mount, how to cut the counter to size, and all of that stuff in case you have to do a basin repair as well. So that is how to replace a leaking faucet, a leaking turn valve, a leaking anything as far as your kitchen or bathroom sink.
Cool. So next on our list, we have how to change a furnace filter. This one is probably the easiest of all the things on our list. It's also one of the most overlooked. You should be changing your furnace filter about every 6 months. So how do you do this? You need to find the size of filter that your furnace requires. And I should mention, when we say furnace, we're talking about what's commonly used in the United States, which is a forced air blower, which has usually heating and most of the time cooling as well. But the air goes through the same blower. So that's what we're talking about here. So find the size of the filter. This could be on a label on the furnace itself. Could be in the owner's manual that we all throw away and never look at again. Or what I do, just look at the filter that's in there, and the size will be printed on the outside. So the sizes in the United States are generally in the format of 3 numbers in inches that say the size of the filter. The other thing to keep in mind, or to know, I guess, is there's different grades of filters. And unless you have like asthma or other breathing problems, a filter rated at MERV 8 to 13, which stands for minimum efficiency reporting value. So from MERV 8 to MERV 13 is a good recommendation. MERV 12 and 13 are nearly as effective as HEPA filters, according to the EPA. However, they are much cheaper than a true HEPA filter, and they do not make your HVAC system work as hard to push air, and in fact, anything over MERV 13 may require a specialized HVAC system. HVAC is heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. So personally, I run the MERV 12 graded. The brand is Nordic Pure. This is a really cool filter that actually contains activated charcoal in between the 2 layers of the filter. It works really well. But anything 8 to 13 that's the right size for your furnace should fit. So
nice. I have a recommendation for everybody when it comes to air filters. If you are buying a new house, part of the process of buying a new house here in America is to have a home inspector kind of walk you through. If you do not know where the air filter installation port is on your unit, because they are different depending on the type of unit, when it was installed, any of that, ask your home inspector and they will gladly take a look at it, because really part of what they should be doing is looking at the AC condenser pump, all of that stuff as well, just to make sure that you're not having to move into a house and then fork over a couple $1,000s. So just ask and they will point it out, and they will also kind of give you some pointers on which size to get for your specific cooling and heating system. So yep. I hate to say it, but I know this from experience. Our AC unit went out, and right before it went out, everything got super dusty. So I looked everywhere for where the filter was supposed to be. Looked, could not find it. And then when our AC broke, lo and behold, it was inside the unit itself. There was not an actual air intake vent anywhere in the house. It was just pulling air from the basement in. Probably why it got so dirty that it ended up breaking. But yeah, ask on the front end. so you don't have an expensive replacement on the back end.
There you go. Learn from Steve's experience.
Yeah, home ownership, man. I want to go back to renting sometimes.
If I could find a place that the rent would be fixed, it would be tempting.
Yeah, for sure. The next thing on our list is, in my opinion, one of the easier ones if you have the right tools. And we're talking about replacing a shower head. This one's nice because you don't have to turn off any main valves into the unit itself. You can just take off, replace. But the first step to replacing a shower head that you want to do is remove the old one. Sometimes you can do it by hand. Sometimes pliers or a channel lock are required. Personally, I don't have pliers big enough, and I don't have any fancy plumbing equipment. I will say a good crescent wrench will do the job. If you don't want to scratch, if you're worried about scratching the chrome, if you put a linen cloth around it before you tighten the crescent onto the part, you're not going to get a lot of scraping and things like that. So one of our basic tools can be used for this one.
Hooray.
Once you have the shower head taken off, remove the old Teflon tape, if there is any. This is actually, hold on just a second.
Ooh. I think we're about to get a visual aid, as we're now presented with Steve's chair spinning. Oh, look at that. I was right. Oh, gotta close the door. I was narrating your movements. Look at that.
Tape
visual aids.
Is a very thin piece of tape. I don't know if you can see this very well.
Yep.
Super thin. Put it over the threads and it will create a watertight seal. People will say that, oh, you can use this in gas systems. You can't. Don't do it. There's other things for that. But as far as water, this will keep the water from coming out. It's non-sticky. Just wrap it around the threads, put the thing on, and it'll stop. The reason I had this, I just replaced a shower head last week, so I had it up here by the bathroom.
Perfect.
Yeah. So a good plumber will have that on the previous shower head. If they didn't, you don't have to worry about this one. But if they did, you want to remove it and then clean the thread on the pipe. For this, I actually like to use a wire brush to kind of clean everything out. If you don't have one of those, a pipe cleaner or
or even like an old toothbrush would probably work.
Toothbrush, yes, thank you. Will work. You don't have to do any abrasive chemicals or anything on that. Just clean it off, make sure it's good to go. I actually prefer a dry surface, so if you do use a cleaning product, make sure it's dry before you put on the new Teflon tape. You're going to wrap this tape clockwise, and I like to start at the bottom and work my way up to the top of the threads, and then after that you will screw on the new shower head clockwise. So the reason why you do both clockwise will tighten it, and if you do the Teflon tape clockwise, it won't unwind as you're screwing the new thing on. So screw it on, make sure that there is a rubber grommet inside the head collar. Sometimes when you buy new ones off of Amazon or Home Depot home delivery, it'll get kind of shaken up in process and might be crooked or somewhere else in the box. Just make sure that it's there. Make sure it's in the right alignment. And then you're going to screw that on. And then you're only going to tighten it to the point where it doesn't leak. Don't over tighten it because it's a pain to take it off later on. Plus, for those of you that don't know thermodynamics, hot things expand, cold things shrink. So if you over tighten it, there's a chance that you could actually split seams or do some damage if you run your shower super hot. So just tighten it to the point where it no longer leaks, and the tape and the piping should do the rest of the trick.
Cool. Yeah, I've broken plastic shower heads before by over tightening them, so don't do that.
Yeah.
Next, this is something that's pretty common too. May not apply if you live in an apartment, depending on your apartment rules. We're talking now about hanging shelves, photos, etc. on the walls. Really hanging anything. So one tip, just to start off, if you, like my dear sweet wife, are what's the word? Don't have a good mind's eye. I don't know. She has really a lot of trouble visualizing the things before they're actually like in place. So when we move the furniture around, we end up moving it like 4 or 5 different times because she has to see it. So if this is you, you can use painter's tape or pieces of cardboard to kind of visualize the layout of your shelves and your pictures. So that's just a quick tip. As far as the actual hanging of items, for lightweight items, and she's in the comments on Facebook, so if I suddenly go offline, you know why. For lightweight things like pictures, you can use a drywall anchor. If the place that you want to hang it is not over a wall stud, and that will hold it securely enough. For shelves, however, and things that are going to have a load, you always want to try and make sure that they span at least 2 wall studs, which in the US are spaced 16 inches apart on center. You also want to make sure you're using the right type of screw. Drywall screws are recommended for most light to medium applications. Just make sure that they're long enough and not too long that they're going to hit something. Also, when planning where to drive your screws, you want to stay away from locations that are at 90-degree angles from power outlets, light switches, and other electrical fixtures. This is because electrical wiring tends to run in straight lines, either parallel or perpendicular to the studs and to the floor. If you have a stud finder that can detect electrical current, use that to make sure you're not going to drill into an electrical wire. You'll have a very bad day if you do that. And then also, if you are hanging items in the bathroom or the kitchen, make sure you're not hanging anything near where the water lines are. If you have to hang something there, make sure you know exactly where the water lines are. And then for heavier items, such as wall mounting a TV, you want to use something called a lag screw, which is basically like a big ass screw with a bolt head on it. Generally, they come with the mount that you purchased, and since these have a much larger diameter, you want to make sure and drill pilot holes into the stud first. Otherwise, you will split the stud, and the screw will not hold it securely, and your TV will fall off in the middle of the night and break stuff. So also, when you're doing something more complex like that, make sure to just follow the included instructions. Usually they are pretty good. A lot of times they'll have a template that you can tape up on the wall and mark where you need the holes to be. So that is hanging shelves.
Nice. I am going to add a little bit on the hanging shelves. You don't necessarily need studs for it. If you get the drywall anchors, some of the newer ones can hold up to, I think, 70 pounds.
Oh, wow.
So it's not super, super sturdy if you're not in a stud. But these things, you drill a hole, put the anchor in, and then as you screw into the anchor itself, it'll actually pull the plastic or pull the metal and create a seam on the back of the drywall, and it just creates more surface area, so you're not pulling on something that's a centimeter thick. You're pulling on something that's about 5 centimeters or 2 inches thick. Just adds a little bit more tension, makes it so it doesn't fall off if you don't have access to the studs.
Cool.
Another thing that I have learned from experience that I like to do, take thumbtacks and put it where you would drill your holes, and then run a piece of string from thumbtack to thumbtack, and then use your level to make sure the string is level before you drill your holes, and then adjust it from there before you drill your holes or add your screws. And that way you're not putting multiple holes into the wall to find the perfect level.
That's a good tip.
I actually learned that one when I was doing drywall on construction. So
Nice.
yeah.
So it's an actual pro tip.
Here is another thing that I did a lot of when I was working construction, and it is laying caulk. Caulk is a sealant. It comes in basically 3 different types. You don't need to know all of them. Just know that if you get straight silicone, it won't hold paint without a primer. So just keep that in mind. But most hardware stores will tell you the kind that you need. The uses for it are sealing holes before you paint, sealing grout, tile and showers, toilets, things like that. Windows, if you have any water coming in or air in the window, it can seal those. I've used it to fix holes in siding that I didn't want to replace the whole siding before. Not advisable, but you can do it. But that's basically it. Can you think of any other reasons to use this?
Anywhere there's a small hole that you don't want a hole.
Yeah.
It's not great for filling big gaps, but it's really good for sealing things.
Perfect. So the first step is to clean off any of the old caulking where you are. To do this, you can use a putty knife, a paint scraper, anything like that to get and just pull it up. Then you're going to clean the surface, make sure there's no oils, grease, dust, anything that will keep the caulk from binding to what you need. Sorry. Caulk itself comes in 2 types of containers, and you can kind of decide what you need. I prefer a caulk gun. I find it easier to use, but that came from a lot of experience. If you're doing a small job, it does come in a little single-use tube that you can just squeeze on and use it. Before you start caulking any project, there's 3 things that you need. These 3 things are a lint-free towel, a bucket of water, and a sponge. And not a kitchen sponge. Get something that you don't mind getting dirty. So what I like to do, actually before I go into this, the squeeze tube, it's like a tube of toothpaste. Cut the tip off at a 45-degree angle, slowly squeeze, the caulk comes out. Caulk guns, they come in these little hollow tubes. You see them quite often when you go see new construction. There's like 20,000 tubes of used caulk just littering the side of the house.
Yep.
These guns is like a ratchet system. You pull the trigger. It moves a plunger like one notch in, and as the plunger pushes on the back, it pushes out the caulk into wherever you're trying to put it. Again, to open it, use a knife to cut a small as small as you can get where the stuff inside actually comes out at a 45-degree angle. I like to turn that angle so it's pointed down. Some people do it up. It depends on if you're pulling or pushing, but that's kind of advanced. And then to lock it in, usually on the back of the gun, there's a little L shape. If it's pointed up, that means that the ratchets aren't attached to the gear and you can't make it move. To make it work, you kind of point it down, and then when you pull the trigger, the ratchet will push it out. So now that we have our application device, we've got our bucket, we've got our sponge, we've got our lint-free towel. There's 3 steps that I like to do. I'm going to take the dry lint-free towel, and I'm going to rub any dust, oil off of the surface that I'm about to do. And then I'm going to take my caulking gun, and I'm going to move it along the seam that you're trying to fill in a slow, steady, until you get the hang of it, and then you can go faster. But pull it as you're pulling the trigger. As soon as it clicks, take your finger off the trigger and keep pulling until no caulk comes out. And then you're going to take on your other hand, your finger, and you're going to push that into the seam as you're going. So you're pushing that into the seam, and then you're going to take the sponge out of the water, wring out any extra moisture, and run it over the top, and that'll get all of the excess on the top and bottom of the caulk off of the surface, so that you're left with just a perfect industrial, like professional laid seam. And you do that for as much as you can. That's how I find it to be the easiest, and it's also how I find it to make it look the most professional, like you hired somebody without having to spend the money of hiring somebody.
Perfect. Yeah. Another pro tip from a pro.
I was going to say, sorry, I didn't...
Nope.
I didn't go off the notes, but I just went off of a lot of exterior painting experience on that one.
Yeah, perfect. It followed the notes like perfectly, so
okay.
That just tells me that I got the notes right. So next on the list we have painting a room. Again, possibly not applicable in a place that you're renting. Maybe, depends on your landlord. But so painting a room, interior paint generally comes in different types of finish. It can be gloss, semi-gloss, satin, and flat are the main ones. And then also some paint requires a primer first, but most modern brands have paint that offers single coat coverage. So to prepare to paint a room, empty the room of everything that you can first. Move all of the furniture out, everything that you can get. The less that's in there, the easier this will be. If there's anything that you can't remove, then put it in the center of the room, cover it with a drop cloth. Drop cloth is like a big plastic, sometimes cloth, tarp type thing. Excuse me. The next thing I like to do is remove the faceplates from light switches and outlets. That'll just make it a lot easier. Then if I'm painting the ceiling, and depending on the type of light fixture on the ceiling, I may remove the glass that covers it. Maybe not. Again, it just depends on the job. If I'm painting the trim, I will remove the doors. I like to remove the doors ahead of time so that I don't ding up the freshly painted walls if I have to remove them later. And then I start masking. So mask the baseboards and the windows with painter's tape. This is the masking tape that's typically blue or green. You use painter's tape because it won't pull paint off with it. And then, so if you're not painting the ceiling, you also want to mask off the perimeter of the ceiling so that you don't get wall paint on your ceiling. Make sure you lay down a drop cloth to cover the carpet. Make sure that it is taped securely to the baseboards to where if you have drips that run down the wall, or if you mess up and spill some paint, that it's not going to like drip down under the cloth. Just make sure that everything's covered and protected. As far as the actual painting technique, I like to use a brush, like a 2-inch paintbrush, to paint the perimeters and like the vertices of the walls and the ceiling if I'm painting the ceiling. And then as for the larger areas of the wall, I like to use a paint roller on like a 4 or 5 foot extension handle, and just use big overlapping strokes. They make little paint trays that are the same width as the paint roller. You pour the paint in there, you soak it up with the roller, and then you roll it on. Make sure you go slowly, otherwise you'll fling paint all over yourself. And then as far as like cleanup, if you spill any, and also for like second and third coats, make sure you read the back of the paint can. It'll have a label, and it'll specifically say, you'll have times on there for like how long it needs to flash off before you can recoat it. It'll tell you how to clean up if you spill. All of the information will be there. So
nice.
Did I miss anything there?
Most modern paints, I would recommend getting water-based instead of oil-based, because water-based you can just take the lid off, let the can dry out, and throw it out in your regular trash. You don't have to take it to a specialized toxic waste facility.
Yeah, good point.
For once you're done and there's not enough to hold on to for patching and stuff. Like, don't do that with a full can of paint. It'll take forever.
Yeah.
This is probably the one that scares me the most. Anything with electricity, to be honest. So we're going to go over kind of the basics of replacing an outlet. Before you do anything with electricity, you really have to make sure that there's no power on into the area, because the last thing you want to do is to be working with electricity and then have to wake up from being knocked out in hospital. So in most houses across the world, there's a circuit breaker that you need to turn off. If you don't know which circuit the plug that you're using is on, the easiest way that I find, if the plug is functional, is to plug in a lit radio and turn it up full blast, and then just turn off circuits while you're outside listening to this radio, waiting for it to go off. Once the radio goes off, you know that you've got the right circuit.
Yep.
Is there another way that you know of? I know I've used light switches or lamps.
I usually use a lamp just because I don't have a plug-in radio. But yeah, confirming, like, I know some people will say, "Oh, I'm replacing an outlet in the living room," and the label on this breaker says living room. But I found that a lot of times that doesn't mean anything. So. I always confirm by actually plugging something in and seeing if the power's on or not to that outlet.
That also brings up a really good point. If you move into a new house, what I would do is I would do this trick. Radio might be hard to like move around, but plug a lamp into all of your outlets, and then flip breakers and have somebody tell you which ones go off to make sure that your breaker box was labeled correctly, and if there's anything that you need to relabel, do that on the onset. as well.
Yeah.
So from here, you're going to remove the wall plate. This is usually held on by a single screw. Looking at mine, it looks like all of mine are flatheads, which I think is pretty standard here in America. But I know I have seen Phillips head screws occasionally. You're going to remove the outlet from the box. This is generally 2 screws, one at the top, one on the bottom. Pardon me, sorry. You got rain today, you would think that it wouldn't be so dry. From here, take a photo of how the wires are connected to the outlet itself. Or what I like to do is take some masking tape and write what point of the outlet it's connected to, because switching wires is never a good thing. You're going to loosen the screws holding these wires to the terminals, and you're going to pull the wires free. And then take the old outlet that is either loose or burned out or whatnot, throw it away, recycle it, however you need to do it. And then you're going to attach the wires back to the same terminals on the new outlet and tighten the screws. Make sure that your 2 wires aren't touching when you do this, because that can cause a lot of issues with arcs and possible fires, possibly breaking your new outlet and all the hard-ish work that you did. So make sure that they're not touching, and make sure it's tight enough that the screw won't pull out, but not so tight that you're fraying the copper on the wires. Turn the breaker on for a few seconds. Check for any burning smells or sparks. Another indication is a smell of tuna fish. Usually comes if you're smelling melting plastic. Most wires are insulated with plastic. If you smell that tuna fish smell after you turn on the power, turn it off, because you're going to have an electric fire. Also, make sure that your breaker doesn't flip from the grounding wire in case something is wrong. Turn the breaker back off, push the outlet back into the box, replace all the screws and the wall plate, plug in your electrical device and test the outlet once you turn the breaker back on, and make sure that both top and bottom, or if it's a side-by-side, left and right side, are all working. And if everything's good, you don't smell anything burning, anything cooking, any fish. Unless you're cooking fish, you're good to go.
There you go. One other thing I will say, the reason we said just note where the wires are and then put them back in the same place, every country has different wiring standards and electrical code. So wire colors and electrical outlet designs are going to be different from one country to the next. Since we have international listeners, didn't want to, specify, the black wire is always hot and the bare copper is always ground and the white one is common. Like, yeah, that might be true here, but we don't want people to try and follow that advice in like the UK, for instance. So just whatever was there and working on the old one, just match that for the new one. And if you are not comfortable, obviously call an electrician. But I replaced a lot of outlets. It's fine.
I was going to say, when in doubt, anything. My rule of thumb is if it could possibly kill me and I don't know what I'm doing, I'm going to call a pro.
Yeah, and while it might not kill you here, in the UK it definitely will. Because, 220 is a lot more than 110. Twice, in fact. Lots of volts.
I forgot that. I was even in the UK not that long ago, and I completely forgot that. They had the strange ones. So cool. I feel like that's kind of an overview of basic home improvement, home repair.
Yeah.
I had fun with this one. I think we should do another one.
All right, we'll plan for it.
Yeah.
So maybe we can do one on like car maintenance or something like that. But
there you go. If you have any anything that you would like to learn about as far as home repair from two not very professional professionals, yeah, tweet us, leave a comment in any of our social medias, and we'll try to address any questions that you might have.
cool. I think that brings us to the end of this one. So for mindfulness this week, we kind of jokingly referenced an old TV show here in the U.S. called Home Improvement. And if you're watching the live show or the VOD, that's what the video overlay is based on. And on that TV show, from when we were growing up, there was a character named Wilson, and he was the next door neighbor to the family that was the main family. And you only ever saw like his hat and his eyes because they would be out in the backyard, and he would like peek over the fence, and he would talk to Tim Allen, the main character. And his big thing is he was always very like philosophical. He used to share proverbs and quotes. And one of the quotes that I remember him sharing on one of the episodes was by Robert Louis Stevenson, who is a Scottish writer. And it just seemed to fit with last week's episode being on Scottish festivals. So that was the one I picked. And the quote is, "I am in the habit of looking not so much to the nature of the gift as to the spirit in which it is given." So to me, this just means like if somebody is giving you a gift, whether that's literal or they're doing something to help you out, whatever, whether or not that is like some large grandiose gesture to you doesn't matter as much as what is the spirit in which they're giving that gift or giving you that assistance. Is it that is more important than how you perceive it as the receiver.
I really like that. It's a good reminder, because some of the best gifts that I've ever received have been homemade cards or even just a letter written to me. And if you think about the spirit in which it's given, it really helps elevate anything that you receive to a whole new level, realizing that thought, effort, research, in some cases, like a lot goes into giving a gift, and if you concentrate on the spirit in which it's given, you're never going to be let down by what you receive.
Yeah, very well said. Very eloquent.
Sometimes I channel my inner Wilson.
Nice.
Yeah, I like that quote. I might have to print that out and put it somewhere in my house just as a reminder. So, anything else this week?
Nope, that was it.
Cool. I guess that brings us to the end of our episode, where we discuss what's on tap for next week. So next week, we are going back down the conspiracy theory pyramid of life, and we are going to look at a certain theory that I'm super excited about. And it is this theory that birds aren't real. Not going to go super deep into it. You'll have to join us next week to hear about it. The great bird replacement.
I'm super excited for this one.
I like it. Good timing on that. Thanks for joining. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, we'll see you guys then. All right. For everybody watching the video, if there are any, thanks for stopping by. Thanks, Chelsea, for your comments. I appreciated your kind words about the video overlay. Took me all of 20 minutes with some very basic Photoshop skills, but
look at that.
It was fun.
Yeah. Thanks for everybody that joined us in the live shows this week. Hopefully we'll see you next week.
Yeah, we probably should have mentioned it at the beginning, but we are moving our live recording to Wednesdays. We found that fits better with both of our schedules, at least for the next several months. So we will see you next Wednesday.
See you then.